Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the March 26, 2026 regular meeting of the San Diego Community Power Board of Directors. My name is Ditas Yamani. I'm Vice Chair of the board representing the City of National City. We welcome members of the public, community power staff, and board members joining us today at the Port of San Diego Administration Building. I now call the meeting to order. Mari, please call the roll, ma'am.
Director Fisher. Director Insunza.
I'm here.
Alternate Director LaCava.
Here.
Director San Antonio.
Here.
Director Suzuki.
Here.
Vice Chair Yamani.
Here.
Chair Lassen-Remer.
Thank you so much.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will go into closed session for conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9D4. One matter. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments on the closed session item?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I defer to our legal counsel. No, or we have to go to,
We have to go into a separate room.
okay, okay. So we have to go, excuse us for a while. All right, thank you very much. We are back to open session. Madam Clerk, please do call the roll. Somebody left? No, we're all
Oh, no, we
here.
already did roll call.
No,
Director
no,
Insunza,
I'm here.
Alternate Director LaCava,
Here.
Director San Antonio,
Present.
Director Suzuki,
Here.
Vice Chair Yamani,
Here.
quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does the General Counsel have anything to report from the closed session? Madam Counsel?
Yes, I do. In closed session, the board gave direction to initiate an appeal of Public Utilities Commission Decision 25-12-008, a decision approving San Diego Gas and Electric Company's 2026 electric procurement revenue requirement forecast, 2026 electric sales forecast, and greenhouse gas related forecasts. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Madam Counsel. Let us all stand up, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Inzunza, please.
Please stand if you can. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Land acknowledgement. Next, we acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the land of the original inhabitants of the Greater San Diego region. A land acknowledgement is a critical step toward working with the Native communities to create meaningful partnerships and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of their cultural resources and homelands. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that were the traditional lands of the Kumeyaay. Thank you very much. We have a special presentation and introduction. We welcome and invite Michelle Phillips, Senior Financial Analyst, and Brandon Lewis, Communications Associate, to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Michelle Phillips, Senior Financial Analyst, supporting the SDREN team specifically with their programs. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle. Welcome.
My name is Brandon Lewis, new Communications Associate for San Diego Community Power. I bring about 2 decades of communication experience to the agency and look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you very much, sir, for choosing SDCP. Welcome. Items to be added, withdrawn, or reordered on the agenda. At the request of staff, item number 13, review and approve 2026 Community Power Rates Adjustment to be effective as of April 1st, 2026 is being pulled from tonight's agenda. Madam CEO, do we have any comments on this one?
Yes, just to inform that the item is not ready and we are waiting for further information from SDG&E.
Thank you, Madam CEO. We will now take up non-agenda public comments. I want to note that the written public comments submitted before the board meeting were emailed to board members prior to the meeting and will be posted online. Madam Clerk, do we have any non-agenda public comments?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to the consent calendar items 1 to 11. Approve February 2026 meeting minutes, receive and file update on programs, receive and file update on power services, receive and file update on customer operations, receive and file update on IT and data analytics, receive and file update on human resources, receive and file update on marketing, public relations, and local government affairs, receive and file treasurer's report for 6 months period ending December 31st, 2025, receive and file Community Advisory Committee monthly update, receive and file update on regulatory and legislative affairs, adoption of Resolution 2606 authorizing San Diego Community Power to join the California Community Choice Financing Authority as a founding member. Does any board member wish to pull any consent items?
Motion to approve. Second.
Thank you. Mary, do we have any public comments on the consent calendar?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Additional none. I see none. So we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Insunza,
Yes.
Alternate Director LaCava,
Yes.
Director San Antonio,
Aye.
Director Suzuki,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamani.
Aye.
Motion carries, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now go on to our regular agenda. We will go to item 12, Community Advisory Committee Quarterly Update. Community Advisory Committee Chair David Harris will present this item. Hello,
Thank you,
Mr. Harris.
Chair Yamani. Good evening, board members and Community Power staff. David Harris, Chair of the Community Advisory Committee, representing the City of La Mesa as well. Thank you for the opportunity to present the CAC's quarterly update. This evening, I'll briefly walk you through the committee's work since I was last here in December. At our December meeting, the CAC received updates from the Community Power's Finance Department and had a robust discussion on the Power Change and Difference Adjustment, one of our favorite topics, PCIA. Members also emphasized the importance of rate stabilization reserves to help protect ratepayers from future volatility as part of the presentation on rate setting. While the CAC did not convene a regular meeting in January due to the board's rate setting meeting, CAC officers and all of its ad hoc committees remained active, continuing progress on our priorities. The three subcommittees that were formed to work together, the first was the 2026 CAC Work Plan Committee. We partnered closely with staff to refine this year's work plan. The updated plan is now directly aligned with the agency-wide strategic goals and introduces clear expectations for member engagement, including each member participating in up to 2 community events. Thanks for your approval of this plan at the February meeting. The second subcommittee, the Community Power Plan Review Committee, has begun evaluating progress made toward the goals and actions outlined in the 5-year Community Power Plan. This June will be the 3 years into the plan. The current focus is assessing program outcomes, measuring impact, and identifying opportunities for improvement, particularly as we look at communities of concern using publicly available documents and data. In other words, we really want to try to quantify the investment that's been made in our communities of concern throughout all the member agencies and how community power continues to address the specific issues in those communities. Third, the subcommittee on distributed energy resources has initiated discussions on procurement strategies, financing issues, and incentive structures as community power plans to meet its strategic goal of developing or procuring 300 megawatts of local distributed energy resources over the next 10 years. Thank you, staff, for the meeting today. In parallel, the CAC officers also continue to meet monthly with staff to co-develop agendas and discuss meeting efficiency, member engagement, and vacancies, and policy items. With the 2026 work plan now approved, officers will also begin tracking our progress and accountability across our committee's priorities. February was an exciting meeting. It was 2.5 hours long. It started out with a comprehensive presentation from the California Community Choice Association, CalCCA. I'm sure you're familiar with that organization. CAC officers specifically requested this presentation as an educational opportunity to learn how the organization supports community power and the CCA ecosystem in protecting its interests at the policy level. And it was very eye-opening to know all that's going on throughout the state and the sort of policies and regulatory challenges. Complementary to that, after their presentation, we heard from our team on regulatory and legislative affairs. They provided their quarterly presentation, providing highlights of the CalCCA Lobby Day. We also appreciated at that meeting hearing directly from the community clean energy grantees. We heard from San Diego 350's Youth Climate Program. That was really inspiring. I think you heard the same presentation. I used to volunteer for San Diego 350, so one of my favorite. We also heard from Suncoast Co-op Market. They benefited from a community energy grant, and it shows how we reinvest in the communities and with timely and support. It was encouraging to see that enthusiasm shared by this board as well. During the same meeting, members received additional detail on the board-approved 2026 rate adjustments and the San Diego Regional Energy Network, the REN. We learned about the launch timelines and the new advisory committee, which we're thrilled to partner with. Finally, I'd like to provide a brief update on CAC membership. As of today, the CAC still has 2 vacancies. We filled 1, but 2 are remaining, one with the city of Encinitas and the other with Imperial Beach. I know staff has been working really hard with the cities to try to identify potential applicants. Thank you for your continued support in maintaining our committee. While we optimistically will soon have a full committee, I also wanted to bring to your attention that in June, myself and several other members, original members of the CAC, after 5 or 6 years of serving, will be stepping down. That includes representatives from La Mesa, National City, San Diego, and Encinitas. This transition presents an important opportunity to cultivate new and emerging leadership. I think we'll find some good people to fill in and ensure continuity in the CAC's work. We look forward to partnering with each of you to identify strong candidates and to thoughtfully position the committee for long-term sustainability. This concludes my second to last report to you as chair of the committee. Thank you for your time and for your continued support.
Thank you so much, Chair Harris. Thank you so much for your commitment. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so much. Hold on.
Yes.
Is there any question from the board? No? Well, Mr. Harris, thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay. I'm in trouble. I didn't follow Mari. Okay, I will now, this is our Receive and File Committee, Advisory Committee Quarterly Report. I should have asked members after the public comment, but there was none, so we're moving on to item 7. We will now move, item 14, Adoption of Resolution 2026-07, approving the Rate Stabilization Reserve Policy. Our CEO, Karen Burns, will introduce the item and turn it over to Jeb Spangler, Senior Strategic Finance Manager / Interim Treasurer, and Pete Polonsky, Senior Rates Analyst, to finalize presentation.
Great.
Madam CEO.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This next item reflects the board's leadership and long-standing focus on affordability, fiscal discipline, and responsible risk management. The rate stabilization policy is a key tool that this board adopted to help manage market volatility while protecting customer rates over time. The recommendation before you reinforces clear guardrails for financial planning in a highly uncertain energy market. I want to thank the Finance and Risk Management Committee, the board, and staff for their continued stewardship and thoughtful oversight. I'll now turn it over to Senior Strategic Finance Manager Jeb Spangler and Senior Rates Analyst Pete Polonsky to walk through this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Karen. Jeb Spangler, Senior Strategic Finance Manager, along with Pete Polonsky, Senior Rates Analyst. Staff is recommending board adoption of Resolution 2026-07, approving the rate stabilization policy. A rate stabilization reserve is an accounting tool to support predictable rates while protecting financial strength. The boxes on this slide represent the core objectives that guide our rate setting approach. One of the key tenets, of course, being rate stability. With the rate stabilization reserve, Community Power will be creating a tool that directly supports rate stability and our approach to reserves while protecting our ability to recover costs. Our recently adopted financial reserves policy provides for the funding of a rate stabilization reserve using excess reserves. The core purpose is to provide a tool that defers revenue recognition in strong years and apply it when it's needed to stabilize rates or meet other financial objectives. Accounting rule GASB 62 allows deferring the accrual of surplus revenues, a deferral by reducing net position in the year it's deferred and increasing the net position when it's recognized. The treatment of rate stabilization reserve money is such that when it's designated for rate stabilization, These amounts remain a part of unrestricted cash and investments for reserve calculation purposes. Establishing a rate stabilization reserve under GASB 62 typically requires board approval and a formal policy, including targets and draw recognition conditions. Mechanically, this is a fairly simple process. In a strong year, we can defer revenue recognition. In a weaker year or during rate setting, we recognize it to reduce volatility. As you'll see in this example we provided, the financial statement impact reduces operating revenues and thus net position in a deferral year, whereas a recognition increases net position in the year that we use it. The deferred revenue is included in the statement of net position as a deferred inflow of resources. As mentioned earlier, this is a rate smoothing tool to be used to address normal volatility and not intended to be used to address long-term revenue and expense imbalances. With this policy, we're aligning 3 existing directives. Our rate development policy, where rate stability is the core, with a preference for just annual adjustments and the reference to a rate stabilization reserve as a mitigation tool. Number two, our financial reserves policy that was passed in December of 2025, where the board may designate reserves between a target and maximum balance as rate stabilization reserves, or up to 45 days cash on hand, which is approximately $125 million. And our strategic plan for fiscal year 26 through 2028, which includes developing a rate stabilization reserve, which targeted an amount of $70 million to mitigate fluctuations and downturn risk. This table demonstrates that peer CCAs have broadly adopted similar rate stabilization constructs, even though the specific mechanics vary. Across the sector, reserve frameworks are generally tied to the thresholds like % of revenues, net position triggers, and paired with explicit board authorization for when and how the funds are used. The peer fund sizes shown here provide a check on the dollar amount and scale. While CCAs vary in customer mix, load profile, and risk exposure, the absolute dollar sizes and relative sizing metrics are within a fairly consistent range across the sector. What this comparison demonstrates is that peer CCAs are not overcapitalizing these reserves, nor are they treating them as surplus or discretionary funds. Instead, rate stabilization reserve sizes are typically calibrated to reflect exposure to market volatility, PCIA risk, and rate setting objectives, while remaining proportionate to overall revenues, operating expenses, and liquidity capacity. With that, I will turn it over to Pete.
Thank you, Jeb. Good evening, Vice Chair and Directors of the Board. I am Pete Polonsky, Senior Rates Analyst. So to supplement Jeb's presentation so far, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the parameters for the Rate Stabilization Reserve policy to contextualize how this the RSR or Rate Stabilization Reserve would function.
Right.
So first, for the use cases, I'm going to emphasize again that this is a tool to mitigate rate volatility and attempt to provide more rate stability, a strategic goal identified both in our rate development policy and our financial reserves policy. The primary use case for this tool is, again, our favorite topic, power charge and difference adjustment, or PCIA volatility. There are several other use cases that we've highlighted in the staff report as well that could potentially be used for this rate volatility, but in our risk modeling, as well as setting or the financial reserve process, this volatility for PCIA was identified as the largest and potentially most likely risk that could occur to community power that could materially affect our rates and the sort of volatility year to year that we can offer to customers. And just to put one number to that, to give you an example of how volatile the PCIA can be, for our most popular residential vintage for the PCIA in 2025, the PCIA was negative 1.36 cents per kilowatt hour, which basically meant that customers were getting credit on their bill for that. Whereas this year in 2026, those same customers are receiving or have a PCIA of 3.55 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's almost a 5-cent jump just in 1 year. That shows just how volatile the PCI can be on a year-to-year basis, which impacts, the viability and certainty that community power can offer at discounts and continue to provide the competitive value to our customers every year. So this is another tool that can be put in our toolbox to help us continue to provide the value to customers, which we were able to do this year, luckily, thankfully, with the 4% power on discount. The other use cases that I'll just mention, in case the PCIA volatility risk, which is the highest per our risk modeling, does not materialize, include relief during extreme exogenous or climate-related events, enhancing affordability for our customers, covering unexpected costs due to new large loads or unexpected load departure, and mitigating other PCIA anomalies that may arise. And the rate stabilization reserve can also be used to meet any required financial covenants to help us maintain good standing with financial institutions. For the target balance, as Jeb mentioned, the policy allows a designation up to 45 days cash on hand, which is tied to current and total expenses, and per our recent amended budget would be about $125 million, just to give you a little bit more of a frame of reference to how much that is for our revenues and expenses. For that amount corresponds to about 10% of operating revenues, about 12% of operating expenses, and importantly, about 30% of the modeled market price benchmark or PCIA volatility risk. And I want to highlight that we modeled what the worst case risk would be. And the full risk was captured in our reserve target setting process. So this just provides a good benchmark for, how much might be covered in one of the worst years possible for the PCIA volatility. For the policy itself, there are two key decision points throughout each year. The first is a transfer from revenues to the rate stabilization reserve, which would typically occur at the end of a fiscal year during a good or positive financial year. As Jeb mentioned, this would reduce the net margin by transferring revenues to the rate stabilization reserve. I'll highlight that these funds that would be in the rate stabilization reserve are still calculated or included in the total reserve calculation. The policy also authorizes the CEO to make this decision for the transfer at the end of the fiscal year, which would then be reported to the board at the next board meeting. The other key decision point is recognition of this revenue, which would typically occur concurrently with the rate setting process, which is typically in January for community power, and would require board approval. And this recognition would be identified to meet or cover an identified risk or use case, as I just mentioned a few slides ago. It also may occur separately from rate setting, and one of the most common scenarios this might occur is to meet any financial covenants or anything like that that might be necessary during or separate from the rate setting process. But typically, a recognition would occur along with the rate change. Just to go over a couple guardrails that have been included in the policy, whenever staff is recommending a recognition from the RSR be approved by the board, staff will also present a plan to replenish the rate stabilization reserve within 2 to 4 years, if feasible. There are several trigger mechanisms that are explicitly mentioned in the policy for staff to consider when either making a transfer or recognition decision, which may occur within the same fiscal year, provided that the rest of the criteria are met. And the last thing that I want to emphasize one more time is that the goal of this policy is to provide us another tool to support rate stability while protecting community power's financial standing. The rate stabilization reserve isn't necessarily going to guarantee that we can provide X% discount every single year, but it does give us a very powerful tool to try and meet the goals that we set for our rate setting process each year for the foreseeable future. And with that, I'll just highlight what this would look like, what the proposed timeline would look like for for the use of the rate stabilization reserve policy. So to the left half of this timeline, you'll see what's occurred over the past few months as the board approved the updated financial reserves policy that explicitly mentions the rate stabilization reserve and the ability to designate up to 45 days cash on hand as that reserve. Meanwhile, community power staff had been drafting this policy while the board also approved 2026 rates in January. And then the last two items on the right are those two key decision points that I highlighted earlier, where at the end of the fiscal year, in about May or June, staff would determine whether to transfer any revenues to the rate stabilization reserve. And then during the rate setting process at the end of the calendar year and beginning of the next calendar year, staff would determine whether to make a recommendation to recognize any funds. And that would typically occur each year, those two decision points. Thank you for the time to present.
All right. This is Mary, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Board members, do we have any comments or question on the presentation?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. I have a motion to adopt.
Second.
I have a second. Recommendation is to adopt resolution number 2026-07, approving the rates stabilization reserve policy. Where's that now? Madam Clerk, do we need to call the roll?
Director Insunza,
Yes.
Alternate Director LaCava,
Yes.
Director San Antonio,
Aye.
Director Suzuki,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamani.
Aye.
Motion carries, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jeb and Peter, for your presentation. Thank you, sir. We will now move on to item 15, approve agreement with Calpine Community Energy LLC for data management and customer center services for an estimated 12,701,612 per fiscal year, plus a maximum CPI annual increase of 4% for an initial 3-year term with renewals. Lucas Uto, Senior Director of Data Analytics and Customer Operations, will present this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Vice Chair. Directors, my name is Lucas Uto. I'm the Senior Director of Data Analytics and Customer Operations. I'm here to present this item and request that the board approve the agreement with Calpine Community Energy LLC for data management and customer center services. These are core functions that keep billing accurate, customer service responsive, and our market and settlement obligations compliant. The agreement before the board is for an initial 3-year term starting in May 2026, with an option for a 2-year renewal and an annual renewals thereafter, and authorize the CEO to execute. As mentioned, the estimated annual amount is $12.7 million per fiscal year, with the CPI escalation capped at 4%. In the next few slides, I am going to cover why these are critical services, how the procurement was run, the accountability and remedies, factors that are built into our new agreement with Calpine, and the data governance improvements, and last but not least, the fiscal impact of this agreement. So on this slide, essentially this encapsulates the 4 pillars of these services that Calpine provides to community power. And as by way of background, Calpine has been providing these services since the beginning of our service to our customers in 2021. The existing agreement was structured such that Calpine assisted community power with a bond posting back in the day when we didn't have any revenues. It also, Calpine was very instrumental in coordinating the back-end systems that were required for us to adequately serve customers with SCG&E back in 2021. And essentially, the core elements of the critical services that they provide can be bucketized into these 4 pillars. The billing, accuracy, and data integrity. This entails daily ingestion of usage data. So every customer that we serve, Calpine, on our behalf, processes multiple streams of interval data, right? At 15-minute interval, 60-hour or 60 minutes interval for all 968,000 plus accounts that we serve. They obviously help or assist in the billing of that usage. And they do so in such a way that when that usage is received, it has to be turned around and sent back to SDG&E within a 4-day window. So all of that happens in such a meticulous way, and they handle that. In terms of their SLAs or service level agreements specific to the billing and data integrity and processing, it's a 99.9%, which is the best out there in the industry. The next pillar is customer service responsiveness. So Calpine assists Community Power in running all of our contact center operations, meaning when customers call Community Power, those calls essentially are routed through Calpine. We definitely equip them with all the talking points, the tone of what we want our customers to hear and how to hear it. But essentially, it's Calpine on the background helping the agency run those contact center operations. They also assist with compliance and market function. So we do actually have to submit what is known as settlement quality meter data to the CAISO, or the balancing authority in the state. And Calpine plays a pivotal role in helping or in assisting Community Power to do so. They also handle a bulk of our complex rate configurations and analytics by and large. So we're talking, obviously you've heard this from me and from members of my team and Tim, we trifurcate rates for every single vintage year, the PCIA, and Calpine implements that on our behalf. So we're talking thousands upon thousands of multiple rate components. They handle those on behalf of Community Power. At our current scale, these services form the basis of our core retail operations, not optional support. It's absolutely critical. Community Power serves over 968,000 customer accounts. So the operational risk of billing errors or settlement quality issues is absolutely significant. But again, I'm happy to report to the board that Calpine keeps those metrics very stellar, 99.9% for the past 5 years. In terms of the procurement process, I'm just going to give you a quick walkthrough. This was a true labor of love. We issued the RFP in November of 2024. We received multiple bids in December of 2024. We went through the iterative process as prescribed by our non-energy procurement policy that was ratified by the board. And Calpine was awarded the services in January of 2025 after a very rigorous internal bid evaluation process, consisting of multiple internal stakeholders, including finance, customer operations, programs, and public affairs. And so between January of 2025 to today, we've been in active, robust negotiations. The reason being, we are very intentional in terms of the services that we're seeking from Calpine, and we wanted better pricing terms. That was the impetus for us to go to market to begin with. In our existing agreement today, Calpine charges the services that they render based on a per meter construct. I'll give you a quick illustration of why this is critical. You could have an instance where you have one building that has multiple meters, maybe 10 meters, right? So in the current agreement, Calpine is charging us for 10 meters. The agreement that is before the board this evening is we want them to charge us for only that one account, right? So then rather than charge us for 10 meters, charge us for one account, right? It saves our ratepayers. And that is at the core of what our CEO and what our executive team and what staff truly believes in. We want to save so that those savings can pass over to our ratepayers. It's absolutely critical. And that was the impetus to drive us into market for these services. In terms of why Calpine was chosen, right? I mean, they've proven time and time again in the last 5 years, and they're a well-proven entity in the state of California. Out of 25 CCAs, they serve 20 of them across not only in SDG&E's territory, but also in other IOU or investor-owned utility territories, including PG&E and FCE. And even there, I think in I think a few of the Calpine team is here, they can confirm that their billing and timeliness metrics are at 99.9, right? So then it's everywhere. They're also local. They're here located in downtown San Diego. So if we have to call them or we just drive to their offices, that is a possibility. And they're very amenable to that. We have multiple working sessions on any given topic, and that we find to be extremely valuable. Obviously, like I mentioned before, it took a long time because in terms of this negotiation, because when we notified Calpine that they were awarded the services, they were also at the same time in the process of getting acquired by Constellation, which is like a large East-based or East Coast-based energy company. And because of those changes and everything else, and obviously the time it took for us to negotiate every single element of this agreement, it took us almost 14 months. And here we are, culminating with the presentation before the board tonight. Calpine also, as I mentioned in the past, when I began the presentation, they were instrumental, not only in assisting community power with its initial set of operational setups back in 2020 and 2021, but they have also done similar things for other CCAs up and down the state. So for those reasons, and again, they are a well-proven entity in SDG&E in particular, because there's a slight nuances between the PG&E or that utility up north and the SDG&E utility, and Calpine, through their vast experience in the state of California, particularly in SDG&E's territory, we felt through all the metrics articulated in our RFP evaluation that they were a value add to us and to our ratepayers. Next, I'll walk through some of the mechanics of the new agreement that is before the board. So we were very intentional in getting Calpine to commit to service level agreements relative to the specific services that they're offering community power. That took a while, but we got there. We've codified in this agreement that's before the board that they have to maintain the accuracy and the timeliness of our billing at no less than 99%, right? So, initially in the existing agreement, it was implied. Now it's essentially explicit in the agreement. And if they don't meet those metrics, there are remedies for us that are well articulated in this new agreement. That took a while to get there, but we're here now. In terms of the reporting and data remedies, we've been able to quantify and essentially encapsulate into this new agreement specific provisions of the critical services, such that there is no ambiguity in terms of what our expectations are for Calpine and what their expectations are for community power, right? It's a mutually beneficial setup. We've also been able to articulate a standalone cybersecurity provision in the services because they're the custodians of a lot of our data interchanges between us and SDG&E. So that is also enshrined in this new agreement. And last but not least, and this is critically important for our power services team, we've been able to also enshrine very robust service level agreements as it relates to the settlement quality metadata that Calpine assists us with. So then, what are some of the scope enhancements too? With this new agreement, there's a lot more of controlled data exchanges between Calpine, community power, and our third-party vendors. We're no longer going to be swapping files via SFTP. We're predominantly going to be doing that via API, which is much more secure. We can know who's coming in and out and who's getting access to our data based on our metrics and based on our protocols, which is also an added benefit. There's some reporting and oversight pieces in this new agreement. And then there is an enhanced operational interface where, we can submit multiple tickets for, tracking purposes. And that is an added value to us as much as it is to Calpine. And then last but not least, what does this all mean in terms of the fiscal impact? So before you, I want to call to your attention the highlights, rather small, but on the left, the number of meters. But you can see it also in terms of the per meter pricing column and the per account pricing. So on any given day, we have more meters than accounts, right? In that example earlier, one building that has multiple meters, in the existing agreement, we're getting charged per meter. So in that example, it'd be 10 meters, whereas in the new agreement, we're going to be charged only for that one account, right? Mm-hmm. So then we're saving there. And this is actually an extract from an actual invoice from Calpine from the last month. So we have 1.192 million meters, right? When you count the meters, and also for our net energy metering customers, folks that have solar, those customers are counted as having 2 meters because the meter is bidirectional. It goes both ways, right? It goes positive and negative, 2 meters. And we have, of all the CCAs, we have the most non-customers of any CCAs in the state. So we're getting charged twice in that construct. So it was critically important for us to move away from the per meter pricing construct into a per account pricing construct. And so what you're seeing illustrated here is the fact that when we move into the per account pricing construct, we're saving $190,000. And this is a month, not a year. It's a month saving. And so in the new agreement, even though the per unit price is slightly higher, right now, this is an agreement that slated to conclude on as of the end of April, we're getting charged 85 cents per meter. This new agreement will be about 97 cents and a half per meter. But even then, when you look at it from a per account pricing construct, their material savings about 218,000. And we've quantified that in the staff report. And that was, again, the impetus of us going to market. So I wanted to highlight that. And that concludes my presentation for this evening. I'm more than glad to take any questions from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Mary, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now turn over to board members for comments, questions, or I'll entertain a motion if Lucas did a good presentation.
I move to approve the agreement.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Insunza? Yes. Alternate Director LaCava?
Yes.
Director San Antonio?
Aye.
Director Suzuki?
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamani?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Root. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you. This was the recommendation. It was approved. We will now go to item 16, approve amendment number 2 to professional services agreement with Wipro Connected Services, formerly known as Harman Connected Services, Inc., for Enterprise Data Platform, EDP, Phase 2, implementation and managed services for an additional not to exceed amount of $530,000. Stephen Yee, Associate Director of IT and Data Analytics, will present this item.
Thank you, Vice Chair Yamani, members of the board, CEO Burns, esteemed colleagues, and members of the public. My name is Stephen Yee, and I'm the Associate Director of IT and Data Analytics. I'm here to present an item before you for approval. This is an agreement with our current vendor, now called Wipro. So it's a funny name, but to approve amendment number 2 for the professional services agreement, which will increase the not to exceed amount of $530,000 for this particular phase, for a revised total contract not to exceed the amount of $1.751 million. So with that, I would like to present some background information, some highlights of the Phase 1 initiative and some of the wins we have gotten from Phase 1, as well as the scope, highlight the scope of Phase 2. So amendment number 2 is a culmination of three phases. The first phase that we came to the board was back in December 24, where the not to exceed amount of 850K was approved to initiate the phase one component of EDP, our enterprise data platform. In November of last year, the board approved amendment number 1 for managed services and response to changes that our data provider, Calpine, had made. So we were forced to make some structural changes that they had made on their back end. So with that additional amount of $371,000 for a new not to exceed cost of 1.221. Today, we're seeking approval for phase 2 for the amount of 530K again, and the new not to exceed amount of $1.71 million. With your approval, we will be moving some CPI or CIP funds from 2 other projects that were on the IT data analytics budget that were postponed due to the fact that it was not needed. One of them was for the AWS structural project that was sort of integrated within our current project. And the other one was for an AI agent for a call center that we felt that we weren't ready for. So we're pushing those timelines back. And with that, again, with your approval, we would transfer some funds because of those items into this capital improvement project. As an overview of the phase 2 phase, the EDP will be positioned to strongly strategic capability, focusing beyond just technical implementation to enterprise value, meaning we will be expanding the scope of the EDP to other departments, in short. The phase 1 was a foundational phase of the EDP project to establish durable, automated, and secure data exchange, replacing manual and very fragmented practices. Phase 2 will be scaling and providing bigger impact to other departments to deliver operational value and support decision-making. The transition from building the foundation to leveraging it reflects continuity, maturity, and prudent expansion as we are working with the current developer in place now. So in short, phase 1 was building the runway, and phase 2, we're going to fly. As an overview of the phase 1 items, there's a lot of information here, but I want to just briefly highlight what we built. We built an automated data ingestion process. We centralized data platform. We a lot of data cleaning, a lot of data validation, which took up a lot of the time with this initiative to build a reliable data workflow. Operationally, the capabilities were delivered in standardized reporting, scalable, repeatable analyses so that we can provide this to our colleagues in other departments. We produced a forecasting deployment within the platform. And finally, operational controls and reliability built into the platform. So what's the impact of phase 1? So I highlighted 4 key points here in this slide. We reduced manual effort. Teams are spending less time on manual tasks, lowering operational risk, and diminishing reliance on individual knowledge. We are consistently providing reporting. The reporting is more trusted and consistent, significantly reducing the effort required for reconciliation and stakeholder confusion. We have a faster turnaround. We have centralized, pre-prepared data to improve turnaround times for common data and reporting requests. Data centralized, and this is also part of a larger initiative. We call it the data optimization and democratization. So this is a key component of that agency-wide initiative so that we know the right data has to be in the right place and accessible to all who need it. And finally, we have a scalable data handling. The organization can now manage larger data volumes and complex analyses without increasing manual effort or staffing. Now, phase 2 So why now? So we're expanding on proven automation, again, with the continuation of the engagement that we have with the current provider, developer. We're focusing on other critical domains as we have worked with other departments, most importantly, power services, programs department, finance, customer ops. With the risk of delaying phase 2 risk underutilizing the platform and continuing manual workarounds in essential functions. So I'll skip the next one, but operational value-wise, we're going to provide more granular forecasting. It enables detailed internal-driven load and revenue forecasting for improved enterprise planning and accuracy. Data will be more enriched as we build the platform to support other data sources. Secure data sharing within the platform. I've been very impressed with the security folks that we work with in now WePro, and platform integration as we advance other initiatives like CRM, ERP. This builds a foundation for that connection. So a couple of highlights as the impact for phase 2, looking at programs and customer operations, additional integrated data tools. Phase 2 offers practical tools integrating customer, demographic, geographic, and property data for streamlined operations. So what that means is we have integrated GIS data within our platform so that, for example, if we need to find a more fine-tuned data set of, let's say, consumers and communities of concern, we can get that data rather quickly. We have enhanced program management. Teams achieve faster insights into participation, eligibility, and outcomes for more responsive and effective program management. Reduce data friction. Yes, data has friction. Simplify data access and preparation, free staff to focus on program delivery and community impact instead of data tasks. Some of the highlights for the Power Services Department. We have data automation benefits, and phase 2 automates ingestion and cleaning of operational and market data, reducing manual reconciliation efforts. Improved forecasting accuracy. We have granular internal data enhancement, short and long-term load and revenue forecasting for better planning. Enhanced decision-making. We have clearer portfolio visibility, enables confident data-driven decisions, supporting rate setting and risk management. And finally, this is a phased delivery approach. We have, I think, 4 different waves that we have identified. Phase 2 will be delivered in scheduled waves with governance and acceptance gates, ensuring quality at every stage. And like I said earlier, with the relationship we've had with this developer, I feel very confident that they will continue the quality work. We have managed services support, as mentioned in the earlier slide. Phase 1, managed services from WePro is maintained throughout this phase so that we have reliance on them should there be any issues. Continuity and risk management. We are on the same vendor, preserves knowledge, maintains architectural continuity, and reduces operational risks. And finally, maintaining and enhancing the high level of cybersecurity controls as initiated during phase 1. One of the components in phase 2 is a centralized user account access so that we can focus and build up our cybersecurity controls within that platform. And that does conclude my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yee. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not, Madam Chair.
I will now turn over to the board for any comments or questions. You have a question?
I do, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So on page, I think it was page 54, it talked about, I think it's AI we're going to be utilizing more AI tools. Is that right?
We're going to be investigating how AI tools can enhance the platform, but it's more of a discovery phase so that we can make sure that it isn't aligned with our internal AI policies.
Okay, and so so there is an AI policy, San Diego Community Power does have AI policy
Yes,
toward that? Okay, great. And so I'm sorry, you know that these questions are coming. So once we have that, and I saw that you said high-level cybersecurity.
Mhm.
So that's great. So can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Of course. So our platform, our EDP platform is currently being housed in AWS. So with the centralized admin, we have like 3 or 4 different tenants, or there are 3 or 4 different accounts per se, you know, the development tenant, pre-prod prod, and a fourth tenant that pre-existed this project. So we're going to tie it all into one centralized administration controls so that we can put in all the high level, you know, user access based, lease privileges, MFA, maybe MFA2, whatever the next version is, so that we can enhance and make sure that our security is locked down.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So, Mr. Yi, you said that NTE is 530, but because there are 2 projects that are not moving forward for now, we're going to reallocate those funds to this project.
Yes, the phase 2 NT is 530.
Yes.
And because, you know, for the unforeseen changes that Calpine made in phase 1, we overspent the budget for this initiative. So looking at some of the projects, that's why I explained earlier that some of the other capital projects that were pushed back because of the timing not being good, we were able to we are able to reallocate those funds should you approve this.
Thank you for those diligence, you know, looking for funds where it should be used first. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Board, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Let's call the roll.
We do have a motion and a second. Sorry, I missed that.
I thought you,
Second, motion to approve the amendment.
okay, and now I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, this is to, the recommendation is to approve amendment number 2 to the professional services agreement with Wipro Connected Services, formerly known as Harman Connected Services, Inc., for additional scope of work and increase the not to exceed amount by 530 for a revised total contract not to exceed amount of 1.751 and authorize the chief executive officer to execute the contract. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Insunza,
Yes.
Alternate Director LaCava,
Yes.
Director San Antonio,
Aye.
Director Suzuki,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yamani.
Aye. Thank
Motion
you, Mr.
carries.
Yee, for
Thank you so much.
presentation. We will now go to item 17, Community Benefits Framework. Our CEO, Karen Burns, will introduce the item and turn it over to Xiomali Crespo, Senior Manager of Community Engagement, to finalize presentation. Madam CEO, your turn, ma'am.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This next item is an informational overview as staff begins developing a community benefits framework that will come back to the board later this summer. The framework will provide clear guidance on how Community Power aligns these investments with the priorities the board has established. Staff has taken a thoughtful, comprehensive approach to this early work, reinforcing our commitment to measurable community value, transparency, accountability, and equity. Tonight's update is intended to support board direction and continued engagement with our Community Advisory Committee. With that, I'll turn it over to Senior Community Engagement Manager, Xiomali Crespo. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Today, we want to walk you through a recommendation for how community benefits, how Community Power could use community benefits funding, and get your feedback as we work to develop a formal framework to bring back for your consideration later this summer. In preparation for this discussion, staff spent time reviewing the agreements, benchmarking models for similar funding, and evaluating what would be feasible to do with this funding for our agency specifically. So let's just begin with a high-level overview. Community benefits funding comes from legally binding provisions in power purchase agreements, or PPAs, between developers and Community Power. These provisions ensure that our local communities share in the benefits of major clean energy projects. We do anticipate approximately $2.8 million through 2028 from negotiated PPAs. And allowable uses of these funds generally include education, workforce development, environmental stewardship, habitat improvement, as well as other initiatives of mutual interest between Community Power and the project developer. Now, there are two important legal considerations that I do want to note. First, that some projects may require developer review of how funds are used before they're actually released to community power, and that our allowable uses can vary by project as well, with that interpretation being guided by our general counsel. With that overview in mind, the next slide shows how this funding is expected to come in over time and across projects. And I'm not going to dwell on this one because the key takeaway is that this funding arrives gradually. It doesn't come all at once and is associated to specific projects. So because of that, it should be treated as limited one-time funding rather than a permanent revenue stream. With that context, staff did identify several important considerations that guided how we are approaching a potential framework for using these funds. As staff evaluated different options, we focused on a couple of guiding considerations, starting off with strategic alignment, in that funding should align with our strategic goals and, whenever possible, build on programs we already are operating successfully. This funding also comes from a limited number of PPAs and does not represent ongoing revenue, as I mentioned. So that means that we should avoid creating permanent financial commitments as part of this. In terms of permissible uses, community power generally has discretion over how these funds are used. But as I mentioned, some agreements do require developer review, and general counsel will help interpret allowable uses when developing the framework. The board may choose to delegate implementation authority to staff or consider hiring a program administrator to run the program. And ultimately, the board input we hear tonight will help guide the framework, which basically means also that additional outreach may be recommended consistent with Community Power's conflict of interest and ethical conduct policies, just so that we're not potentially barring, stakeholders that would benefit from this funding as they participate in shaping the program. Now, staff did explore several possible approaches to arrive at the recommendation that we're presenting for your consideration today. And after reviewing the agreements, benchmarking other models, and evaluating administrative feasibility, Community Power recommends prioritizing community grant making focused on distributed energy resources, or DER, particularly in communities of concern, potentially for nonprofits, small businesses, community serving facilities, and member agency partners, as well as other public agencies. This approach would lower energy costs for community serving organizations, allow Community Power to continue to explore how to best serve this customer segment through our existing programming, which can be particularly relevant as we explore non-residential version of solar battery savings to continue to address gaps in the market. Increase workforce development opportunities in the region, provide resilience and backup power during outages, support local clean energy development, and strategically align, help advance Community Power's 150 megawatt local development goal. Critically, this approach also aligns with our contractual uses, fits within available funding levels, is administratively feasible with no significant new costs associated with standing up a new program, creates measurable long-term impact for the people we serve, I think most importantly. And as part of our due diligence, we did have a robust discussion with our CAC earlier this month, which was generally supportive of how nimble this approach can be with one-time funding, and recommended that grant go towards public agencies, that they at least partially support the communities these projects do impact, and that they continue to fund innovation in getting communities to adopt clean energy technologies. Staff also reviewed how similar funding is used locally and nationally, including examples from other community choice aggregator like Marine Clean Energy and public agencies like the Fallbrook Public Utility District, as well as New York's Host Community Benefit Program. These examples generally showed that grant making, bill relief, and community projects are common approaches to this type of funding. And while direct bill relief, sponsorships, community solar, and other initiatives were considered, the limited one-time funding levels would have minimal impacts or concentrate benefits in a small number of our communities. After reviewing these models, staff concluded that a grant-making approach focused on community clean energy projects emerged as the most flexible, equitable, and legally defensible way to deliver benefits across our service territory. And crucially, Community Power already has the infrastructure to do this effectively. So rather than building an entirely new program from scratch, staff recommends leveraging and refining the existing Community Clean Energy Grants program. This approach offers administrative efficiency, lessons learned from already established partnerships, and a program structure that already aligns with our goals. Funding priorities for this program, as approved by the board in 2024, currently include increasing energy literacy, supporting clean energy education, improving air quality through electrification, clean energy workforce development, and energy resiliency and backup power. Within the proposed and current program structure, eligible applicants would be tax-exempt nonprofits or partner with a nonprofit. Projects would be evaluated by a review committee, including community power representatives, and applications would be assessed based on alignment with funding priorities, feasibilities, communities served, and potential impact. Safeguards already in place include required final reports with measurable outcomes so we know what activities our grantees are up to. Board notification of program-related disbursements. So that's the invitation that we provide to you all whenever we do announce the awards. And compliance with applicable laws and labor requirements. As part of this process, we would also expect to run a competitive request for proposals or an RFP process for a program administrator to support us in the implementation of this work. Therefore, the RFP would be informed by the framework that we do agree on later this summer. Last meeting, you heard about 2 wonderful projects funded through this Community Clean Energy Grants program, which demonstrate how grant making is already supporting some really big impact out and about within our communities. And in terms of timeline with the board's direction today, staff will begin moving towards developing a more detailed framework for your approval later this summer. We look forward to hearing your feedback so that we can develop an effective framework that ultimately represents community interest, that has a transparent process that is also inclusive and accessible, and that has community power delivering concrete, meaningful benefits towards those that we serve. So this concludes my presentation, and I look forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you so much, Shamalis, for that presentation. I am excited that it's now coming to fruition. This was a championed by our former chair, Joe Lacaba, who's here today to witness this, this program is now coming to fruition. Small as it may be, we have a community benefit, right? Thank you so much for that leadership, sir. We know now it's coming there. Is there any comment from the public, Madam Clerk?
There are none, Madam Chair.
I will turn over to the board for any comments or questions or entertain a motion.
No motion.
Oh, this is this is a receive and file this informational item regarding the community benefits framework. Thank you, Somalis, for this presentation. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I've been away for a while, so bear with me. But don't we do grants already?
We do.
So, but this would be treated separately with kind of a different philosophy?
This would be treated similarly. So right now,
Okay.
what I presented was kind of like the policy that exists today. This is an opportunity for us to augment the program to really align with the intent of community benefits and create one comprehensive program that is of the grant-making kind, but that also delivers these benefits to the community.
And we can mix those funds together?
Yes.
So, okay, great. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Shamalis, for the presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We will now go to item 18, announcement of public investment grade credit rating from S&P Global Ratings. Our CEO, Karen Burns, will excitedly and proudly present this item for us.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Next slide, please. I am pleased to share that on March 9th, Community Power received an A stable credit rating from Standard & Poor's. This is a very significant milestone for our organization and a strong external validation of the disciplined financial stewardship, governance, and risk management that our team and the Community Power Board have consistently delivered. And also of note, we are the youngest CCA to achieve this high level of a credit rating. Next slide, please. An A stable rating strengthens our ability to manage risk, secure more favorable financing, and clean power to the communities we serve today and well into the future. Importantly, a public credit rating also brings an ongoing level of accountability. S&P will conduct regular surveillance, and we will continue to be measured against the financial discipline that supports an A category profile. That external oversight reinforces our shared commitment to maintaining strong liquidity, operating performance, and risk management practices over time. Next slide, please. This rating reflects years of thoughtful decision-making and a shared commitment to building a resilient, financially strong public agency that can serve our communities for the long term. I want to extend my sincere thanks to our past and current board members for their leadership and your leadership, partnership, and unwavering focus on sustainability, affordability, and organizational longevity. I also want to recognize our exceptional staff whose professionalism, fiscal discipline, and commitment to Community Power's mission made this achievement possible. This outcome is truly a collective effort grounded in strong board oversight and executed by a highly capable and dedicated team. Lastly, I would like to thank PFM, our municipal financial advisors who have helped to make this all possible. Thank you again for your trust and support. I am proud of what we've accomplished together and excited about what this milestone enables us to do next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam CEO. Mary, do we have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board, do we have any comment for that wonderful report? You have.
Just really,
Yes,
just
yes.
congratulations and thank you, Karen, for your leadership and everybody here. I think it's weird that we get compliments because we're just following what you guys give us and you tell us and you give us this great work and information. We're really lucky to be here and to have such a great group to, lead us in a way and give us the information we need. So thank you for your work and congratulations to the organization.
Thank you so much. This is a receive and file staff report acknowledging San Diego Community Power's publicly issued A issuer credit rating with a stable outlook from S&P Global Ratings. That needs a noise. We'll now go to CEO's report. Ms. Karen, do you have anything to report, ma'am?
I do. I have additional good news on the finance front. On Monday, Community Power completed its third clean energy prepayment transaction, generating millions of dollars in savings for our customers. This transaction strengthens our long-term procurement strategy and highlights our growing financial sophistication as a public agency. It is especially meaningful that this prepay includes a local partner, keeping additional benefits here in our region. I want to thank the Board of Directors, the Finance and Risk Management Committee, the Community Advisory Committee, and our entire team, especially Jeb Spangler and Tim Maglamont, as well as our power and finance teams for all of their work and support. Most importantly, this work delivers lasting value for our customers and helps ensure Community Power remains strong, stable, and affordable over the long term. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Any director's comments from that side first? To that side now? No comment. This brings us to I want to shout out to Katie and Aoife. Thank you for visiting National City and helping us in promoting Power 100. Yay. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I appreciate everyone's participation today. The next regular meeting of the Community Power Board of Directors will be on April 23, 2026 at 5 p.m. We are now adjourned.
Good job, Chair.
All right.